Leader of the Opposition, Pritam Singh, says this year's budget was not the reboot of ideas that he had been looking forward to. But with Singapore in the throes of the pandemic, he says it's understandable that the country's focus is to stay the course and be nimble. Still, Mr. Singh says opportunities for what he calls a reset lie on the horizon. He calls on the government to relook certain areas, including strengthening social compact and improving the skills of the local workforce. Vanessa Lim with more.
As Singapore looks to emerge stronger from COVID-19, improving the skills of its local workforce is a top priority. But Workers' Party Chief Pritam Singh says some initiatives and schemes appear to benefit a small number of Singaporeans. This includes the Capability Transfer Program, which has been extended till 2024. It supports foreign to local skills transfer. Mr. Singh says fewer than 970 Singaporeans have benefited from the program since it was launched in 2017. Speaking in Parliament, he called on the government to provide more information on their outcomes.
The public should be given greater insight into the effectiveness of multi-billion-dollar initiatives that aim to improve job opportunities and outcomes for all our workers, but especially our mature workers. This is in light of the fact that a significant number of workers will also enter their 50s by 2030.
He also urged the country to do more to strengthen social compact by helping those severely impacted by the pandemic and the economic downturn. He quoted a recent report which found that median household income for low-income families fell by nearly 70% during the pandemic. On the $100 worth of Community Development Council vouchers issued to households to help defray expenses, Mr. Singh suggested limiting their use to just heartland shops and hawker centres.
There is a risk that if this is not done, the bulk of the vouchers would be spent at supermarkets like NTUC, FairPrice, and bypass the heartland shops. If the major supermarket chains are involved, the scheme could effectively mirror a cash top-up.
He also said there's scope for a serious review of the necessity of having community development councils, with its work overlapping with other organizations. This comes as the need for mayors continues to be widely questioned. Turning to the recent hike in petrol duties as Singapore takes big steps to combat climate change, Mr. Singh questioned whether the government had assessed the inflationary effect and its impact on the cost of living for Singaporeans. He also asked if the government is prepared to look proactively to prevent profiteering by unscrupulous businesses. Mr. Singh urged the government to consider a phased approach to such tax increases, as it could put more pressure on middle-class Singaporeans. Mr. Singh said he viewed this year's budget as a continuation of previously laid out plans, sharing that he had been looking forward to signs of a reboot of ideas, given the impact of COVID-19 and recent remarks by ministers. However, he sees opportunities for a reset by scrutinizing the deployment of government resources to achieve better outcomes for Singaporeans.
This should be consistently reviewed, especially since significant fiscal resources are being deployed across a number of years. The relevance of institutions whose roles and functions substantively overlap with other state agencies should also be reconsidered, with finite fiscal resources redeployed to support the low-income and needy.